I never thought I would be the one to tell you this. But 3. Atlas just spoke again, and this time the universe answered back. Before we begin, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything unusual in the night sky lately? Anything at all? NASA is tracking patterns. We need to know where these phenomena are being seen. What I'm about to share with you may change the way you see humanity's place in the universe. I am Dr. Michio Kaku. I am a theoretical physicist. I have spent my entire life studying the cosmos, peering into the fabric of space-time, attempting to decode the language of the universe itself. I have stood before blackboards covered in equations that describe the birth and death of stars. I have lectured on parallel universes, on the possibility of civilizations millions of years more advanced than our own. But nothing prepared me for what happened when 3I Atlas returned. You may remember the name 3I Atlas, Comet C/Y4. It was discovered in December of 2019 by the Atlas Survey in Hawaii. At first, it seemed like just another icy wanderer from the Oort cloud, that distant shell of frozen debris at the edge of our solar system. Astronomers were excited. It was supposed to brighten dramatically as it approached the sun. For a few weeks in early 2020, there was talk that it might become visible to the naked eye, a rare celestial spectacle during a time when humanity was locked indoors, staring at screens, suffocating under the weight of a global pandemic. But then something happened that no one expected. 3. Atlas began to disintegrate. It had broken into more than 24 fragments. The scientific community shrugged it off. Comets do this. They are fragile. The sun's heat, the gravitational stress, it tears them apart. We moved on. We forgot about it. But 3I Atlas did not forget about us. In March of this year, a signal was detected. Not from Earth, not from any known satellite, not from any probe we had sent into the void. It came from the exact coordinates where 3I Atlas had fragmented 5 years earlier. The signal was not random, it was structured, it was intentional, and it was directed at us. I was in my office at the City College of New York when I received the call. It was late, past midnight. The voice on the other end was shaking. It was a colleague from JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena. He said 3 words that I will never forget. Michio, it's back. At first, I thought he meant the comet itself, some remnant, some fragment we had missed. But no, he meant the signal, the transmission. He told me that radio telescopes across the world, from Arecibo's successor arrays to the square-kilometer array in South Africa to the Chinese FAST telescope, had all picked up the same thing, a repeating pattern, a mathematical sequence embedded in a carrier wave at 1420 megahertz. That is the hydrogen line, the most fundamental frequency in the universe. The frequency that every advanced civilization would know. The frequency we ourselves have used to shout into the cosmos, hoping someone might hear. Now someone was shouting back. I flew to California the next morning. I did not sleep. I could not. When I arrived at JPL, I was escorted into a secure facility, one I had never seen before, even after decades of consulting with NASA. The room was filled with scientists, intelligence analysts, linguists, engineers. On the wall was a single screen. And on that screen was the data. It was beautiful, and it was terrifying. The signal repeated every 11 hours and 14 minutes, precisely, not approximately, precisely. That is not a natural phenomenon. That is a clock. That is a heartbeat. And embedded within the signal was something even more disturbing, a coordinate system, not based on our ecliptic plane, not based on our solar system. It was galactic. It referenced the center of the Milky Way. And within that system, it pointed to a location roughly 37,000 light years from Earth, deep within the Sagittarius arm of our galaxy. But that was not the strangest part. The strangest part was the response. Within 72 hours of the first detection, something else happened. Observatories around the world began picking up secondary signals, not from 3I Atlas, from other locations, deep space, directions scattered across the sky. And here is what made my blood run cold. They were all responding to the first signal. They were talking to each other. We were not listening to a message. We were listening to a conversation. I have spent my career imagining what first contact might look like. I have written books about it. I have debated it with colleagues over coffee and wine. We always assumed it would be singular. One signal, one civilization. One moment when humanity would finally know it was not alone. But this was not first contact. This was us stumbling into a conversation that had been happening for eons, a conversation we were never supposed to hear. The team at JPL worked around the clock to decode the structure of the transmissions. We brought in cryptographers, computer scientists, experts in artificial intelligence and machine learning. We fed the data into quantum processors. And slowly, patterns emerged. The signals contained nested layers of information, fractal encoding, self-similar structures repeating at every scale. It was the kind of compression that we are only now beginning to understand with our most advanced AI systems. Whoever or whatever science was transmitting this had technology so far beyond ours that comparing it to our own would be like comparing a stone axe to a smartphone. But then, something even more unsettling happened. The signals began to change. At first, they had been repetitive, mechanical, like a beacon. But after 2 weeks, they started to vary. New frequencies appeared, new sequences. It was as if whatever was transmitting had realized it was being observed, as if it knew we were listening. And then the message became clear. I'm going to tell you what it said. Not because I want to, but because you deserve to know. The translation is still incomplete. We are working with fragments, with probabilities, with AI-assisted interpretations of a language that does not operate on syntax or grammar as we understand it. But the core meaning, the intent, is unmistakable. It was a warning. The message, as best as we can interpret it, was this: you have been quarantined. Do not attempt to leave. You are not ready. You are dangerous to yourselves, to others. Remain where you are. You are being watched. I read those words on a printout in a conference room at JPL, and I felt something I had not felt since I was a child. I felt small. I felt afraid, not of death, not of invasion, but of the truth. The truth that we, humanity, with all our art and science and ambition, are seen by someone out there as a threat, as a contagion, as something that must be contained. The room erupted into chaos. Some scientists argued it was a mistranslation. Others said it was a hoax. But the data did not lie. The signal was real. The response was real. And the implication was inescapable. Earth is inside a galactic quarantine zone. The more we analyzed, the more details emerged. The signal referenced something the translation team began calling the threshold. It appears to describe a level of technological and cognitive development that civilizations must reach before they are allowed to join what we can only describe as a galactic network, a community, a federation of intelligence. But we have not reached that threshold. According to the signal, we are centuries, perhaps millennia, away from it. And until we do, we are to remain isolated, contained, observed from a distance like a virus in a petri dish. But why 3, Atlas? Why did the signal originate from the location of a comet that disintegrated 5 years ago? That question haunted me. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I replayed every lecture I had ever given on interstellar travel, on von Neumann probes, on the possibility of self-replicating machines exploring the galaxy. And then it hit me. 3I Atlas was never a comet. Think about it. It appeared suddenly. It brightened in ways that defied our models. It fragmented at precisely the moment when humanity was most vulnerable, most distracted, most afraid. What if it was not ice and rock? What if it was a probe, a sensor, a scout sent to observe us during a moment of global crisis, to measure how we respond to existential threat? And when it had collected enough data, it did not disintegrate. It transmitted. It reported back. I presented this hypothesis to the team. At first, they resisted, but the more we looked at the data from 2020, the trajectory, the fragmentation pattern, the residual signatures, the more it made sense. The pieces of 3I Atlas did not behave like comet fragments. They dispersed too uniformly. They emitted faint electromagnetic signatures that we had dismissed as noise. But they were not noise. They were transmissions, quiet, subtle, encoded in ways we did not yet know how to listen for. We had been visited, we had been studied, and we had failed the test. The Pentagon was informed, so was the White House. International coalitions were activated. There were meetings behind closed doors that I was not privy to, but I was told in no uncertain terms that this information was to be compartmentalized. The public could not know. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The reasoning was predictable. Panic, societal collapse, the erosion of religious and philosophical frameworks. But I disagree. I have always believed that humanity is stronger than we give ourselves credit for. We have faced plagues and wars and famines. We have stared into the void and refused to blink. We deserve the truth. That is why I am telling you now. The conversation, the exchange between the signal from 3i Atlas and the responding signals from across the galaxy continued for 38 days. And then, abruptly, it stopped. Silence. Every telescope on Earth and in orbit is still pointed at those coordinates. We are listening, waiting, but there is nothing. Just the hiss of cosmic background radiation. Just the ghost of a conversation we were never meant to hear. But here is what keeps me awake at night. What if the silence is not because they left? What if it is because they are still here, watching, waiting for us to do something, to change, to prove that we are capable of something more than war and division and the slow poisoning of our own planet? I think about what it means to be quarantined, not in the medical sense, but in the cosmic sense, to be isolated, to be deemed unready, to be told, in effect, that you are not yet worthy of joining the greater community of intelligence in the universe. It is humbling, it is humiliating, but it is also perhaps an opportunity. Because implicit in that warning is a promise that the quarantine is not permanent, that there is a threshold, that we can reach it if we grow, if we evolve, not just technologically, but morally, philosophically, spiritually. We stand at a crossroads. The signal from 3i Atlas was not just a warning, it was a mirror. It forced us to look at ourselves as we truly are, a young species, violent, creative, self-destructive, brilliant, capable of both unspeakable cruelty and profound beauty. We are children playing with fire in a universe full of beings who have learned to wield stars, and they are watching. I have spent my career studying the laws of physics. I have explored the mathematics of higher dimensions, the possibility of traversable wormholes, the nature of time itself, but none of that prepared me for the emotional weight of knowing that we are not alone and that we are not welcome. Not yet. There is something deeply existential about this moment. For all of human history, we have wondered if there is life beyond Earth. We have built radio telescopes and sent golden records into the void. We have scanned the skies for signs of intelligence, hoping for a signal, a proof, a confirmation that we are part of something larger. And now we have it. But it is not the triumphant first contact we imagined. It is a quarantine notice, a cosmic restraining order. What does that say about us? I think it says that we are dangerous, not because we are evil, but because we are young. We have power without wisdom. We have technology without maturity. We have the ability to split atoms and edit genes and build machines that think. But we have not yet learned how to live with each other, how to share a planet, how to overcome the tribal instincts that served us well in the savannas of Africa, but are catastrophic in an age of nuclear weapons and climate change. The beings who sent that signal, whoever they are, wherever they are, they have seen this before. They have watched countless civilizations reach this point, this inflection point, where a species gains the power to destroy itself and must choose whether to do so or to transcend. Most, I suspect, do not make it. Most burn themselves out in wars or ecological collapse or runaway artificial intelligence. The galaxy is likely littered with the ruins of civilizations that never made it past the threshold. But some do. Some learn, some evolve, and those are the ones who join the conversation, who become part of the galactic community, who are no longer quarantined. We could be one of them.